Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the WBF podcast. I'm here with Tyler Loy. Tyler, how are you?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good.
It's good to have you on. Thanks for being willing to do this, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I tell people whenever they're like, how do you know Tyler? I'm like, we did Discovery together. And then, Jody and I are so terrible. That's like where we let it stop. You know, we should have tried to reach out to you guys more, because I remember in that season we were needing some friends, and it would have probably been good to surround ourselves with some people who were getting familiar with the church at that time. But I reached out to you to do it, and then you told me you listened to the first ever episode, and I was like, oh no, the first episode. That's crazy. What you think?
Yeah, I loved it, man. So when I saw it was you and your dad, I was like, I'm in.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something to just father and son dialogue, especially as real as that was. That, I mean, it's we need more of it. So yeah.
You know, when you did say that over text, I was going back through our text just before you got here, and you said it's always good to see like a dad and a son having like a real conversation or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But I know you said
Yeah.
a real conversation, and that really stuck out to me, and it's highlighted to me like how blessed I am to be able to have like a real conversation with my
For
dad.
sure. Yeah.
So many people feel like they can't have that conversation. But when that sticks out to you, is there a reason it sticks out to you? Is it because your relationship with your dad is good, or what makes that stick out?
Yeah, so my dad was kind of he was the spiritual leader in our household, and he made sure every Sunday we were in church. I grew up going to a Methodist church.
Okay.
And, I'll be honest, man, I could not stand my dad for a long time because he was, to me, my parents had 5 kids, and my younger brother and I were the last of the Mohicans. We were like, I'm something like 18 years younger than my oldest sister. So
Wow.
yeah, they really spread things out. And anyway, by that point in time, I think like they're just kind of older. They're trying to raise 2 young kids, and I just found myself resentful a lot of times, which isn't, I guess, completely unusual for a spoiled, entitled little kid like myself. But as I got older, though, and especially now, and my dad's he passed away a few years ago from cancer. So especially now, it's just it's different when I see people with their dads. It's like, there is something about that I took for granted. And I was fortunate enough in my kind of story, to be able to tell my dad some of those things and tell him that he was right about a lot of the things that he had tried to impart to me.
Yeah.
But I wish I had more of that. So
Yeah. I think it is a normal thing for most people to go through, is like some kind of rebellious phase where, I've talked about it on here before. I definitely took my upbringing for granted a lot. And whenever I was a kid, I didn't really question it much. Like I wasn't like an introspective kid. Some of these people talk about their like thoughts as a kid. I'm like, man, you were introspective. I just kind of went with it, like whatever was told to me I was doing. So church was just life. Now, as I got older, I kind of started not wanting to go as much. But really the rebellion came in with like drugs and like my friends wanting to do stuff that I knew was wrong. And that's whenever I became resentful and justifying my life and you don't know any better and all this stuff. And so how old was your dad when you were born?
That's an excellent question, and I should know the answer
Like a
to
guess,
that right
like
off
a
the top of my
guess
head.
you guess.
He was close to 40.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so my dad, it's a crazy story. He was a manager at McDonald's for a long time.
Okay.
He was raising my oldest siblings, and at some point in time, he decided that he wanted to go back to school, and he went to dental school
Hmm.
in the early 90s, shortly after I was born. I think he graduated in 91, and so he joined a dental practice and started doing dentistry, man,
Yeah.
and it was that's the I guess the ironic thing is, like, I had no reason to be resentful. I had
Hmm.
no reason to go through a kind of rebellious phase. I would imagine that most people are in the same boat. Whether they feel like they have a reason or not, it's hindsight. It's probably not valid, but I certainly didn't, because I have two parents that are happily married.
Hmm.
Dad has a great job. He's gone out of his way, near 40 years old, to go back to school to better himself, to provide for his family. And yet still, I just always feel like I am somehow different, distinct, like
Hmm.
I don't fit in, or um, I'm always trying to either be at the top of the heap, or I'm seeing myself at the very bottom. I don't have a
Hmm.
realistic view of where I am relative
Hmm.
to everyone else. If that makes sense.
Yeah. High highs and low lows, man. That
Yeah.
can be tough. I think that resentfulness, like, it's so hard when you're that age to see past the bubble you're in. You're just in this life bubble that it's so hard to explain. You try to explain it to these kids growing up now, and they don't get it. But as you get older, the more you see, like, man, I was so not thinking about the fact that my dad went to school to better. I didn't think about my dad, providing for us the way he provided for us. I was just thinking of the things I couldn't do, the things that made me different, the things that other kids were just getting to do whenever they wanted to. And I had these rules and structures and religion. But really, my parents had a good relationship with God. I just saw it as religious. You know what I mean? And everyone comes to that coming of age moment where, your faith is tested for yourself. Like, you have to find God, you have to find Jesus for yourself. And so, did that take you a while with this resentment you had? What was your relationship with God like early
Yeah,
on?
yeah. So kind of the ironic part is that on Sundays we were basically just dragged to church.
Hmm.
Insert classic joke here about
Yeah.
being drugged to church, but I think when I was in middle school and early on in high school, there was this. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. There was this college named Asbury College, and
Hmm.
it's a seminary school, and it's near Lexington, but I'm not sure exactly. Maybe it's Wilmore, Kentucky.
Hmm.
Anyway, Asbury would have every year they would have this 3-day music festival.
Hmm.
And I remember, like, POD came, and if you remember the old school
Hmm.
Christian bands, Jars of Clay was there one year. Um, and it was just awesome. And so I was in youth group and stuff like that. So I went, and man, I thought I was really on fire for Jesus, because I'm getting into youth group. There's awesome music around.
Hmm.
Um, and I've got all these friends, that I'm hanging out with, and I didn't have the ability at that point in time to kind of separate the social aspect of church.
Hmm.
That was my church at that age, youth group. I didn't have the ability to separate the social aspect of it with the true relationship with Christ.
Hmm.
And so that never really matured. But if you would have asked me at 13 or 14, I would have said, man, I'm on fire. I'm all in.
Hmm.
And what I really ended up having was this kind of legalistic approach
Hmm.
to, I would call it religion at that point in time.
Right.
And what that showed me is that, from experience, is that if I approach religion or try to approach a relationship in a legalistic way, I'm going to quickly get burned out, because
Hmm.
I'm not able to white knuckle perfection.
Hmm. Yeah.
And even as a 14-year-old, that was incredibly frustrating. And so kind of from there, the way that it got tested was that I just decided, man, if I can't do this right, I'm not going to do it at all.
Yeah.
And so I found reasons, and this is where the rebellion really kicks in with mom and dad. I found reasons to start rejecting my upbringing. And, early in high school, 15, 16, somewhere in that era, if you would have talked to me about it, I would have told you I am an absolute atheist. And I loved, having battles with Christians because I thought I can logically outdo you, and what I obviously failed to realize at the time was that was the pendulum swinging back the other direction as a result of my new resentment that I'd formed towards what I thought I'd formed towards God. That, yeah.
Yeah, man. It's like you hit on such a good point there, and it hit home with me so hard. Is at that age you realize I can't do this right. Like, I'm gonna mess up. I'm gonna fall short of this mark. I'm going to sin. If I can't do this thing wholeheartedly, then like, what's even the point? I remember asking myself that question all the time. You're just confronted with this decision, this almost legalistic way of looking at it, where you're just like constantly aware of your flesh, but then you have this on fire moments with these worship services and everything. You're 1 second you're on fire, the next you're falling so short, and it's like the enemy's in your ear saying you'll never perfect this.
Yeah.
But it's like not for us to perfect, right? Like Christ perfects us.
Yeah.
So we have to like die to that. We have to die to that. But at that age, it's so hard to know that and to steward that.
Yeah, and I definitely don't want to come across critical about. I'm very grateful for the church that we go to now, because, I think I'm also just I come hungry and ready to learn, whereas at 13, 14 years old, I probably didn't. But I don't remember getting the concept of it's not by my might, it's only by his spirit, right? So I think what I was getting at that music festival and at certain points was glimpses of the spirit, but I didn't have a framework through which to process that or know that that's what it was.
Yeah.
And so instead, what I depended on was just what I thought I knew, which is like the law,
Right.
the Torah. Go back to the rules.
Yeah. I tell everyone right now, I've been listening to this series on sin, and it's called Free from Sin. It's by Keith Moore. And he tells everyone to go home and read Romans 5, 6, 7, and 8. And I advise it too. I just read through 7 last night, and I'm going to read chapter 8 probably tonight and reread through it a couple of times. But I'm having a revelation of sin and like what it is, and like what can we do, and where are our hearts in it and stuff. And it's really a fascinating topic to dive into. But for me, I went to Faith Center since I was like 8 years old. So like I grew up with a church like this my whole life. I think there is something that comes with maturity and also like the right heart, like you were just talking about, and kind of growing into that. Okay, now I'm ready. You know what I mean? I'm ready to receive this. But isn't it so interesting how as a kid you can go from, if someone asked you at 14, you'd be like, I'm on fire. And then at 16, someone could ask you and you'd say, I'm completely opposite.
Yeah.
It's like in our brains, like to convince ourselves, we have to justify it to the point of where it's like, okay, if I can't do this 100%, then God's just not even real. And you would even like take pleasure in arguing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think in hindsight, the fact that I took pleasure in arguing it was just a clear indication of my anger. Hot take, I don't even know if atheism is a real thing. Like, I don't know that actually exists. I think,
Yeah.
that's a rabbit hole. But anyway.
We love rabbit holes on this show.
Yeah,
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I just think a lot of times what it is a manifestation of undealt with anger. I haven't seen any evidence, and I've heard a lot of atheists try to debate, and I haven't really seen any evidence that convinces me otherwise. But yeah, so I guess shortly after that, I got into drugs,
Mm.
got into alcohol, and even though I did have the last thing I ever want to do is throw any of my family under the bus. But I'm just going to tell you my story as it is.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a tradition that was, you know, very much about going to church on Sunday, but also not afraid to have a few glasses of wine on Saturday.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And so we, I guess I like to say it like this: like we took this trip every year for as long as I can remember in July. We'd go to North Carolina. We'd go to the coast there,
Mm.
hang out with some family for a week, and it's still one of the highlights of the year.
Mm.
But growing up, what I would see is that when everybody goes on this trip, they're drinking Corona, they're
Mm.
drinking whatever they're drinking, and everybody's having a good time. And they all look forward to this trip just as much, but they've got something different going on.
Mm.
They seem to be looking forward to it for more reasons than just the ocean and the sand and the beautiful weather. Like they are
Mm.
getting something I'm not out of this. So I would see that and I was like, that's interesting. I wonder what that's like. And so
Mm.
I grew up with this association that drinking is a way you relax.
Yeah.
And so I get to 16, 17, whatever age it is, and it's like, well, let's relax, And I remember the very first time that I drank, just thinking that I'd figured it out, man. Because for as long as I could remember, even when I was in youth group, it was always, like I said, top of the heap or bottom.
Mm.
It was always a competition. I left to my own devices in my flesh, I am the center of my universe.
Mm.
It's just selfish and self-centered. And so when I finally had that first drink, I didn't care. And all of a sudden, like I wasn't not enough,
Mm.
I felt like, okay, yeah, people actually do. They like me just for me. In fact, I make them better. The fact that I'm here,
Mm.
So
Mm.
I had all of these, and I've heard it said like 10-foot tall, bulletproof.
Mm.
Those
Mhm.
types of moments where I just felt complete.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there was an immediate love affair with alcohol after that.
Yeah, when you're talking about this like top of the heat, bottom feeling, I remember I went to private school until middle school. So like it's very small, like 12 kids in my class. So I remember when I went to middle school, like I didn't fit in with like the top of the heat, like the preppy, like the popular kids. I fit in more with the bottom of the heat, with kids who are already kind of like talking about drugs or I didn't see any of it until maybe closer to high school or right around that seventh, eighth grade year. I can't really tell you exactly, but Pastor Garrett taught the youth. It's been probably a long time now, but he talked to them about seeds, and with substances, sometimes you don't even have to do it to like sow a seed in your heart. Like you were talking about, you're like seeing them, like they're having a good time with drinking. Like they're not just here to just paddleboard or like float or whatever. They're here to like have a good time, and drinking is like the equation. Like it's the addition symbol, it's the whatever, it's in there somewhere. And I remember like I had glorified marijuana before I'd even smoked it. Like I'd seen my brother doing it, I had seen it around, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Like that's a cool thing to do. And so before I even like hit it once, I had decided I liked it. And so when you go into a substance like that, especially with alcohol, because it's kind of harder to drink it the first time, unless you're just drinking something that's like fruity or whatever.
Yeah.
It's harder to. I remember like I had tried alcohol and I didn't like it as much when I
Yeah.
first tried it. But the weed was easy because I had already had this like idea, I'm going to like this thing when I do it. And so for you, it's kind of started with alcohol.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and going back to what you were talking about, your experience in school, very similar, and I think that's maybe I didn't do a good job explaining it. Like top of the heap, bottom of the heap wasn't even what I mean by that isn't even so much of like I'm competing to be the best at something as much as I am constantly feeling like I've got to either, set myself apart in one direction or the other. And I'm not
Mm.
okay just being a part of a group,
Okay.
and I guess the way that I would think about this as a Christian is that, you know, the church, the body, we all have different functions, right?
Mm.
And the Tyler approach to this would have been like, well, I want to be the arm and the leg and the head, and
Gotcha.
and
Gotcha.
so I wanted to fit in everywhere with everyone, and so as a result, I had no real identity.
Mm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
just I was good at blending in. Like if I was hanging with the preppy people, I would try to like fake it until I
Mm.
make it.
Mm-hmm.
And then but I also wanted acceptance from the stoners,
Right. Right.
and
Right.
then I also, so it was just wherever I went, man, I would just try to I would be a chameleon
I
to
get you.
blend into that environment.
Mm.
And I guess that's kind of how I would measure myself.
Mm.
But going back to, what you were asking me about, for sure, it didn't take long. What that first drink kind of showed me was that my family was on to something, and that everything that I'd been taught about alcohol being bad, you're gonna die immediately. Well, that was a lie. So what else are they lying to me about? And then definitely that spiraled. It was weed next, and then it was just anything that I could get my hands on.
Mm.
And one thing I should say is that it becomes hard in my story to distinguish between, like, because my wife now, as you mentioned her earlier, is Carly. We were high school sweethearts.
Okay.
So, and the last thing I want to do is tell her testimony, but she was already with me, putting up with my garbage at at
Yeah.
this age, So,
Wow.
yeah. But
Thank God for grace, right?
yeah, yeah.
Was she in it with you though, or what?
She was,
Yeah.
yeah. And like I said, I don't want to give her story away, but we
For
were
sure.
we were definitely on the same kind of playing field at that point in time.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank God for grace. Thank God she was patient enough to.
Yeah, it makes it easier when your partner is in it with you, and then it's really hard as a man to like grow out of that and be the guy you need to be for her.
Dude, yeah.
And like for me, like I met Jody right before I became an alcoholic. Literally, I met her, and within the first year of us dating, I got 2 misdemeanors, and so I started drinking, and just didn't look back. So I first couple of years, I'm just partying. But I was like heavily drinking off the get go, blacking out, just being an absolute buffoon. And I'm with Jody, and she's just having to put up with me. And like all of my worst moments, man, she's just seeing me as like just not a good person, And I hate that. But like God's healed us in so many ways. It's so awesome to kind of get on the other end of all that and kind of like really see where God's going to take us now, because man, she was faithful, through a lot of it. And I won't tell her story either. I'll let her tell. I mean, she's been on here before and we've talked about it and stuff. And it's just one of those, it's always good to remind myself, like, man, she dealt with me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Last week, I think I texted you. Our anniversary was last week.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And this time, for whatever reason, I think it is because of what God's doing in my life. But it was just, anniversaries are by nature a time to reflect. But even more than I can remember reflecting, I was just like all in my feels that day, man. There was a couple of times that I just lost it. And
You said 14 years, right?
15.
15. 15. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. But yeah, for sure because yeah, she was, we were partners in crime for a while, but then she got her act together before I did.
Yeah.
And what I would say, and it's it was one of those things that was shameful for me to say for a while, but she was faithful to the Lord when I wasn't ready to be, and she was
Mm,
the reason that we were in church for as long as we were before I kind of woke up, you know.
mm.
So I thank God for faithful women who are patient enough to wait on their spouses to figure it out.
There's been so many testimonies, man, on here. Women don't get enough credit where it's due whenever they're faithful. And it's like with Jody, like I had the upbringing, I had the everything I needed. I shouldn't have had the testimony I have. I should have been able to be the straight and narrow for her, for my family, for everybody. And I was just letting her down. But like something she didn't have, but what she had that I didn't have was a passion. She had the heart already.
Mm.
She had already made up in her mind what she wanted. I remember that, like on the first date, she was like, "If you don't believe in God, I don't even want to talk to you." I was like, "Whoa, this is like, just for me, it was like cool. Like I felt confident, but still, like for her to come out the gate swinging like that,
Boldly,
like
yeah.
dude, she was super bold. I remember it was almost like one of those dates. Is like put up or shut up first date, kind of like this is how it's gonna be. This is how I want it. If you don't want to be a part of it, we don't even have to go any further. I think she had been burnt. She had had her
Yeah.
heart hurt, and so for me, it was like, wow, like I needed that. I needed someone who's just going to tell me, like, this is how I feel, this is how I want it, and yeah, like you said, thank God for faithful women, man. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, and so fast forwarding a little bit, we went to college together. I went to the University of Kentucky,
Hmm.
and things were. I got sober thanks to God first of all,
Hmm.
but through the vehicle of Alcoholics Anonymous, and
Okay.
um, what they have kind of taught me to think about this is like it's a progressive thing. It
Hmm.
it tends to just get worse if left unaddressed, and so
When did you start doing that? AA.
let's see. It would have been 2013. So my sobriety date is September 21st, 2013.
Okay.
That's when I got serious about it. When I was 18, I got arrested for a DUI.
Hmm.
And, I think I had to go to some meetings, but it was one of those things like, yeah, I already know all this stuff. I've got it figured out. I don't need you guys.
Right.
And then of course I go and repeat, and then it gets a little worse. And,
Mm-hmm.
but at that point in time, it had escalated from drinking a little bit and smoking weed to, I was from Eastern Kentucky in the early 2000s, and it was just opiate city.
Hmm.
And so everyone, it felt like everyone I knew was on some form of oxycodone or something like that. And as somebody who's just wanting to feel any way other than how I feel, sure, I'll try it.
Yeah.
And it got a hold of me, and it's it was. I think up until that point, I would have said there was some measure of control in what I was doing.
Right.
And then after, and I don't know where that magic switch is where you cross a line,
Mm-hmm.
but after I did, there was no control. It was the thing that completed me. It was the thing that made me happy. It was all I thought about. It was just consuming.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a pretty bad place to be.
Yeah, I don't have experience with the pills. I was afraid of them because I was like always thinking it was gonna. I knew how addictive my tendencies were. I had tried some stuff like harder than just marijuana before, and just never really gave it enough of a chance. You know what I mean? To really like grab hold of me, but It is. It's a dangerous game, and like you said, where you grew up, and in that time frame, that was literally just a pandemic, and it was probably not just there, all over all over America,
Yeah.
that people were addicted to those pills. It's sad, man. And so you said 2013 was like your official sobriety date. Is that when you quit everything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I, there were a few more episodes in there, and
Mm.
some rough times, but
But you were still like you were still doing the thing, right? I mean, you're going to college. Did you get sober before college or?
no. So I was in college at UK for a year,
Okay.
and I actually had a scholarship to go to college and lost it within a year.
Wow.
Had to move back home. And it just continued to spiral. I would try to move to this place or that place. We
Mm.
tried to move to Louisville for a little while. Didn't work.
Mm.
I found what I was looking for wherever I went,
Mm.
because ultimately I was taking me with me, right? And,
Yeah.
and so it it just never dawned on me that maybe I was the problem. And uh, yeah, I mean, the reason that I'm even in Paducah is because my wife and I were getting ready to get married, and we had come up here. So her mom lives here.
Mm.
We'd come up here to go wedding shopping, like
Mm.
wedding dress shopping, and get some stuff for the, you know, I don't remember what all it was. It's like, decor for the wedding and
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. And so we drove to Paducah, and of course, I don't go anywhere without having plenty of because at this point, it's not even fun anymore.
Yeah.
This is like 4 years into an addiction, 5 years into an addiction. I'm not having fun. I'm just managing,
Mm.
and I'm actually more of a danger if I don't have it,
Right.
because it's like that is what I need to just stay out of withdrawals.
Mm.
So it's insane the way that the enemy uses that to take a hold of people.
Yeah.
Because that first time, it's like, what could be better than this? It's straight dopamine, serotonin, all of these things that God has given us to reward us when we do something that's worthwhile.
Mm.
But instead, here I am just getting that delivered on demand
Mm-hmm.
until it's not effective. And it wasn't effective anymore. And now the thing that I thought was my solution, I'm now a slave to.
Mm.
And yeah, so we come here to go wedding shopping. I've got, plenty of drugs on me, plenty of pills on me. We do our thing. We stay with her mom for a couple of days, and then we're about to head back. And her mom was married to a guy at the time who wasn't my biggest fan, as you can imagine. And honestly, I can't blame him. And he, as soon as we left, he knew what was up. He called the Kentucky State Police. He said, "Hey, here they are. Here's what they're doing. Here's what they're driving. Here's where they'll be in approximately 30 minutes. And so there was a Kentucky State Police officer waiting for me on I-24 as soon as you get onto the Western Kentucky Parkway,
Mm-hmm.
right in that area. And yeah, man, he had my number. He knew what was up, and he stopped me, and I was, kind of as an aside, I hated that guy for a long time for calling the cops on me
Yeah.
for a really long time. And since I have learned that guy helped save my life, but that didn't get downloaded to me overnight, And when
Yeah.
I'm sitting in the jail cell and I'm kind of keen to what happened, I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna get him somehow.
Yeah.
And fortunately, that all did happen, and I ended up in Paducah, and I ended up in it was actually in Caldwell County,
Mm-hmm.
and they allowed me to get everything moved to McCracken County and go through the drug court program here.
Mm.
And that's where things really kind of started to turn.
Mm.
Because at this point in time, now, I'm getting ready to be married. I am getting ready to be a father.
Mm.
And it's not even that I was ready to grow up. I think something happens to women before it happens to men when they are about to be parents, which makes sense. They're the ones they have to physically bring
Yeah.
this child into the world, right? But for
Mm-hmm.
me, I'm still trying to live life normally.
Yeah.
Well, she's cleaned up. She's done with it. She's had enough of my stuff.
Mm.
And yeah, shortly before September 21st, 2013, I am no longer welcome in my house.
Mm.
I am going wherever I can. For a while, I stayed in I don't even know what the name of the hotel is. It's not a hotel, it's a motel.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I kind of skipped a little bit. I got through drug court okay. I was a successful student there. I could fake it long enough. But then, what drew me back was alcohol. Because I still, even though I had to go through this 18-month period of sobriety and was able to do it, I still couldn't fathom. It could be, whatever it is today, October 30th, and I would think about that beer on the beach in July,
Yeah.
and I'd go ahead and say, there's no way I'm going to be able to not drink. Just screw it. Let's go ahead and go get one, And that's what brought me back to drinking and using all over again. And so even after I'd had all these consequences, I'd been to jail multiple times. I'm now in a different city. At this point, I am married. At this point, I do have a daughter. I have finished drug court. I'm like, screw it. And it spiraled, like I said, to the point where she didn't want me around. She cleaned up her act. She had a sponsor in Celebrate Recovery.
Okay.
And her sponsor wisely said, if you keep putting up with it, he's going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And so I was couch surfing or motel surfing or doing whatever I could do, working a job at it's either O'Charlie's or Outback Steakhouse, just
Nice. Yeah.
trying to make tip money and survive.
Were you worried about your relationship with your wife, or were you just like, we'll figure it out, or what was your mindset like?
I was worried, but and again, I wanna stress, I used to have this secular view of addiction and alcoholism.
Oh yeah,
and I would think
me
that
too.
it's just a
Way of life.
chemical dependency.
Oh, okay.
Well, when I was in it, I thought it was a way of life. I thought I'm born this way, I'm gonna die this way. So what? This is just who I am. Kind of just a way to cope, right? But then even after getting sober, I had a very secular, scientific view of it where it was like, well, this is chemical dependency, blah, 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 whatever. You could fill in the blanks with all the scientific research on that.
Yeah.
But what I realize now is it's much darker than that. It's much more nefarious than that. And I would say it's even spiritual.
100%.
And I cared certainly about my daughter and my wife, and I guess I didn't know how to live without it. That's even after 18 months of sobriety, it just, like I said earlier, it got worse and not better. So it didn't take much time at all after ripping the Band-Aid off and going back out there,
Right.
for things to just spiral and get even worse somehow than they were before. And I was even more desperate because now I've got less to hide and less to live for. And, because, well, my own wife's even kicking me out. So even though I was concerned, I was resentful at the same time.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Isn't it crazy that you end up resentful towards the people who love you most?
Yeah.
And it's just like the way to just keep the heat off me. Earlier you said, you had to take you everywhere you went. And there was this accountability struggle. And I think everyone who's struggled with addiction knows what that's like. Is that feeling of like doing anything to shift the blame or anything to
Absolutely.
just say like whatever justification it is.
Yeah. I'm not as bad as that guy,
I'm not as bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so just some tough love for anyone out there who's struggling with addiction is if you are looking at everyone else but yourself in the mirror and taking a second to really contemplate where the issue is at, you'll miss it. And it's right in front of you. But so many people do it. And that's the thing you see with people going through recovery is that keeps on coming back to the heart of the issue. And if they can get past that, they can like surrender that and, humble themselves and admit it to themselves, then you can see change. But if you can't, if you continue on this path of like, it's something else, or it's the substance, or it's this, or it's that, you'll be resentful, you'll be not hate. I mean, you can end up being hateful to the people who love you most.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where the conflict came in because yeah, I definitely cared and I wanted to be reunited with my family, but also I can't believe they did that to me.
Yeah.
And it's just this inability to see reality. And again, I think that's spiritual in nature, and that's a feature, not a bug of addiction.
Yeah.
And so I got to the point on the night of September 20th where I had so I was an IV drug user at this point in time, and I had I'd just done too much, and I don't really know exactly what happened. I know I was at somebody else's house on their couch, and I know that I started using the same way that I would use regularly, and then I woke up about 4 or 5 hours later, and there was blood everywhere, and I realized that I was very lucky to have gotten up.
Wow.
And
right where you were whenever you were still in the same place and
no,
everything?
I had fallen down like
Oh.
on the ground.
Wow.
Yeah, and hopefully that's not too graphic.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Whatever you feel comfortable sharing is.
Yeah. And so I don't know. It was the first time in my life where it wasn't the Department of Corrections that told me, "Hey, you're going to do something about this." It was like, man, I don't have anywhere else to go. I am about to die, and I need help. And so, my dad, who I told you earlier had gone to dental school, he was always the guy that would, when I'd call him and I'd ask for help, which help in the middle of addiction means give me money.
Right.
He wasn't having it. But what he had done in the meantime while he was practicing dentistry is there was a place very much like Centerpoint, but it's in Moorhead. It's the Moorhead, Kentucky version of it, and it was called the Moorhead Inspiration Center. And he had formulated some relationships with people there, and he actually had done some dental work for. And I'm going to brag on him because he's my dad.
Yeah.
He would do free dental work for those guys who were in treatment there.
It's awesome.
It really is. Just shows his heart. But because of that, he had formed relationships with the kind of the coordinators and the people that managed that place. And so when I called him and said, I need some help, he said, all right, I'll make a phone call. And on September 21st, 2013, I was on my way to Ashland, Kentucky, to a Pathways facility there. And then I ended up in Owensboro at a place just like Center Point in Owensboro. And so that's where, yeah, my sober life started.
Mm-hmm. And so when did you feel like you got either rededicated your life, or when did Jesus come back into
And
this
that's
equation?
the biggest miracle in my testimony. You know, I like talking about what happened with drugs and alcohol, but
Yeah.
just because it's ultimately it is God every step of the way, everything that happened, whether it was the guy who called the cops that allowed me to even be in Paducah, or it's the fact that we went to a couple of Celebrate Recovery meetings that just happened to be at Faith Center, and we were like, well, let's try this church on Sunday too. You know, it's God had his hand in all of it. But what's amazing is that I got sober and was still, I would say, just very much like a lukewarm Christian. You know, it was important for Carly to go to church on Sunday, so we went.
Right.
But man, from eating like junior bacon cheeseburgers for $1, you know, and just putting $2 of gas in at a time, to like, okay, well now I'm in college. Now I've had a job and they don't want to fire me. Uh, now my wife will let me into the house. You know, now I'm like learning to be a father. All of these things. Hey, we got a car too.
Right.
Now you're cooking with gas, you know? And so I start getting all these comforts and I'm like, man, this is good. I've been blessed. That's good enough. You know,
Right.
and so I wasn't in pursuit
Oh man.
of anything more than that. I was in pursuit of staying sober. I was in pursuit of, you know, life is much better than it used to be. So that's a blessing. And it's funny, you talked about discovery. I was like kicking and screaming. I did not want to go through discovery because if you remember, there was a discovery long time ago where it was just like one class, get in, get out, boom, you're done.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, so that was
Oh, I'm sure I was there. I just
yeah, you were definitely there. But I'm wanting to say something like 2016, 2017, something like that, you know, but it was just a one class.
I might have not been going regularly at that time. I can't remember. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. And so I was willing to do that. But we already did that.
So you guys were going that. How long have you guys been going to Faith Center?
So my son, who is 10, my wife was pregnant with Hudson when we
okay.
started going. So something like 11 years.
Wow.
And
okay.
yeah, there's a lot of funny stories about that. I still get people that's, hey,
So you were going there
Is this
for
your first time?
like, oh man, that's happened to me. Yeah. Oh, that's hilarious. This one lady did it to me. It was like probably 2 years ago or something, and she's been going to our church forever, like since I was like a kid. So like she asked us if it was our first Sunday, and I was like, Kelly and Yvonne, they're my parents. And that's what I always like lead with, because almost like 80% of the church will know if I say Kelly or Yvonne, if they've been going there for at least a little while. They usually know my mom and dad. But, you know, so you were going there for like 6 plus almost 6 years before you guys even went through Discovery.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we, you know, Carly finally convinced me that we needed to go, and we were in there with you guys, and it was
That's awesome.
yeah, it really was, and it started to break down some walls that I'd built up because, and again, it is not my. I think AA helped me a lot for a season,
Yeah.
but there were some walls that were built up there. I remember Pastor John actually, what I thought was like bad mouthing AA at certain times in his sermons. He would say things like, "Well, you are not an alcoholic. You are a child of God."
Right.
And at the time, I'm like, "Nope, you're wrong."
Wow. Yeah.
And so I had this type of mentality. Well, then I go to Discovery, and I kind of get a better picture of who John and Sarah are.
Yeah.
And I realize that I do have some walls built up. And I'm still not completely willing to to like let other people in or even fully submit to God, but it's just like a layer, it's a seed that gets
That's so
planted.
interesting that stuck out to you so much, because I've heard him say stuff like that before, and as someone who went through AA, it was so personal to you that you almost took offense to that,
Well,
because you were
the thing that I'll say in defense of AA is that sort of mindset is, even though it's not something that I agree with at the moment
right,
in my walk with Christ, at the time it's like, what had my Tyler's best thinking had proven, like, I keep thinking that I get healed from this thing. I go a while and I'm sober. Surely I can drink now.
right,
And then I try it and then it gets worse.
yeah,
And so it's like, instead of, I think where we as Christians would say, like, well, we don't want to hem up our identity in something like being an alcoholic. What somebody would say on the AA side is, it's not so much about making that your only identity. It's about making sure you don't forget, because
it's like holding your feet to the fire.
Yeah.
Like you're
Yeah.
like holding yourself accountable to this idea, to where you don't forget it.
yeah,
I think something that happens with every person who gets sober is they have to continue to keep themselves accountable for a long time until they get it completely washed out of them. Like, I've been sober for over a year and I feel like I'm pretty good, but there might still be an occasional urge, and I have to do some self-reflection quickly to make, like, say, are my boundaries still in place? Am I still good? What steps do I need to take to make sure I don't
yeah,
relapse?
yeah,
And so I get that idea of, like, as someone going through AA saying, like, I'm an alcoholic, it keeps you in that present mindset of, like, no, I still am, like, I need this, right? Like, I need to be sober, but I do also, as I've been around John for a long time, and I've been around faith preachers for a long time, words matter. And so, like, when you do say that over yourself, whether you realize it or not, subconsciously you are claiming that identity.
yeah,
And so there does come a point where I feel like you do need to break free from that identity and say, I'm no longer an alcoholic. Like, I'm an alcoholic. My name is Daniel. No, I am a son of God. I am a child. I am, Jesus Christ is living inside of me and claiming a new identity. So in John's way of thinking of it, he's thinking of it from, like, a spiritual, grace-filled
sure.
mindset. But I see what you're saying, and for people who are maybe less mature in their walk, they might need that, especially if they've walked through it. And like you said, for someone who's been through it, you didn't have the pieces until you had that, right? Like, you needed
the structure.
You needed that structure.
Yeah.
So I completely see where you're coming from.
Yeah, and I've come full circle on that, and I'm exactly what you were saying. Words do matter. They are more than just words.
Well, that's why something like this is so good, because people who have gone through AA, who might also go to church or whatever, they might be offended by something like that. But it's so good that we can have, like, a whole conversation about it, because when John's preaching, he's going. You know what I mean? He'll say that, and then he'll go right on to the next point. And he won't
think about it,
and
at
it's
all.
just, there and gone.
Yeah.
And so for us to be able to at least expound on it a little bit more, hopefully can give people a little bit more context, a little bit more to think through with it.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay if you need that and you're going through AA and you're in AA, if that's keeping you sober, don't just stop what you're doing.
Right.
But also, something for you to think about is your identity, and, like, what is your identity,
Yeah, and I would even say that, so AA helped lead me back to Christ. It took me from being in a position of, I'm an atheist, at best agnostic, to,
yeah,
okay, maybe there is something. I don't know what that is, but that's all AA is going to require of me, so I'll make that concession.
yeah.
And then over time, it was like, okay, well, the something that I think that maybe there is looks a whole lot like the thing I was learning about when I was a kid,
Yeah.
And so it was just a slow drip and a gradual process of me allowing myself to because it sucks when you just got to be like, hey, I was wrong. I've got egg on my face. I was kind of living this way, making all of these arguments. And it was really more because I'm an immature child who didn't want to be, you know, who wasn't able to go all the way back to the beginning, like wasn't able to hold the legalistic religious ideal that I thought I needed to hold. And so having to kind of come back and face that was a process. And I think AA has some good, it's rooted in good principles, but it just, there's some things where, yeah, as I've grown spiritually, I'm not as comfortable with some of those principles, but I think it can, like I explained, for me, it can be a great kind of gateway to, it can be the Bible for dummies, you know?
Right. Yeah, a lot of people who go through it do end up coming to Christ.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
you're acknowledging that there's a higher power.
Yeah.
Like that step for some people is a huge step, and I think everyone's got their own walk to walk, and you had to kind of figure that out. You know, you were tested with this word, like, man, like, okay, but AA is good, and there is truth to that because it was good for you. And so you were tested with this idea of like, okay, but I'm not an alcoholic. Like, I don't have to claim that. And so then that's something that you have to kind of like work through. You know what I mean? And a lot of times it's anger that's the first response for humans whenever we're tested. Whenever we're like tested to grow, we almost kind of get angry because we're like, it hits you somewhere in your heart. You're like, man, that's, for me, I still feel like I'm tested with this. Whenever I relapsed and I sought counsel, I tried like meetings. I tried like a faith-based, like go to church. We did like a whole like little church service. And then you had like almost like an AA style meeting where you sit around a room and you just tell people what's wrong with you. Like just, this is why I suck. And this one guy, I mean, he was like tweaked out. Like he had almost gone, like it's going to take like a miracle from the Lord to bring his brain back. He was just like had done so much meth, and I felt it just breaks your heart. You're sitting around a group of guys, and some of them were so broken, and it didn't stick with me. It didn't. So you got to figure out what sticks with you. And so I sought help from Pastor Jeff, and I met with him for like a whole year, and it was really a blessing to me. I think it was me just being ready to receive some help.
Yeah.
But he said something that I still battle with to this day that I'll share with you. Is like, he said that the reason you do that is because of a past trauma. Like everything goes back to like a traumatic, like there's some kind of trauma that you're not dealing with. And I think that's just a like psychiatrist in him. Like that's like a sticking point that everyone says, like, but I was like, I don't see it. I don't see it. Like I don't get that. Like I don't know. I think I just did it just because I did it. Like I think I was just that crappy of a person. Like I don't know if I have like this traumatic experience in my life worthy of justifying this action. I think I just was like a person of habit who got addicted and then just couldn't get out.
Yeah.
And so even though maybe I didn't receive everything he said, I received a whole lot from what he said.
For sure, yeah.
And, whether or not that's true, or maybe I'll find out one day there was this trauma that's still deep inside me, but I'm sober now. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where the rubber hits the road. That's what matters, right? Is like, I'm sober now.
Yeah, and through that process, more is continuously revealed.
Right.
Right. But it does mean staying sober. But congratulations on the year, by the way.
Thank you, man.
That's
It was like
awesome.
March, so we're probably almost on 2 years.
Yeah.
Getting somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I'm terrible with dates, so I don't know the exact, and I know people are really good with that, and I couldn't even tell it the 11th, I think.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of deaths in my life, and for friends, whenever they were young, died too soon, and like I can't tell you the day they died, but people like remember that stuff, and for me, it's like almost like I just like forget it. And
Yeah.
someone that maybe that's my trauma. Is just like I'd rather just forget it rather than like hold on to it every time this anniversary of mourning and suffering comes around. I just don't want that. If that
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah. And I don't know either about past trauma. I certainly have had things that I've had to lay down at the altar.
Mm.
And a lot of it had to do with just my relationship with anyone.
Mm.
It was just this something like what we're doing right now, just being vulnerable with somebody else. That was not on the bingo card for me,
Right.
because it was just too much. I am my default is to just be funny enough to keep people off my back and away,
Mm.
and then I don't really ever have to worry about getting hurt.
Yeah.
And so as far as trauma goes, I guess that's something that I've certainly, like I said, had to lay down at the altar. But I had, like I described to you, I had a really good upbringing, very fortunate. I don't have that to blame. But what I do know is that we are fallen.
Right.
We are rooted in sin from what happened back in the garden.
Mm.
And so I think just left to my own devices, I just think that I'm smart enough to find a way to be happy, to find happy. And it's that hedonistic chase for
Mm.
what's going to make me happy right now. And it seemed like drugs and alcohol did that for a while, until it didn't, and it had the exact opposite effect. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, trauma's tough because I don't know that I would say there was this one of singular event that caused
Yeah.
for me, but
Yeah, I think it's good for people to hear different ideas of what it looks like because everyone lives such a different life. I'm sorry I went down and rambled on the.
no, you're good, man.
But you were like, you got to a point where you had figured it all out, and then you're comfortable again. So then it's like you almost don't even have to seek more of a relationship with God because you're just kind of good with where you're at.
Yeah,
And so your wife's like, we should do discovery. And so for people who don't know, discovery is like the way you get introduced to maybe becoming a member at our church. So you learn more about like the vision of the church. And it's probably something I did whenever I was like 14 or something with my parents, whenever they first, I think I was there when they first ever came up with this idea. So I was like, I kind of get it. I've done it before, but same for me. Like we needed to go through it. We needed because like we had gotten out of church for a few years, and then after COVID and everything, we were pregnant with Caleb. It's time to get back into church. We're about to have a kid. It's time to get back into church. And so after about a year or so of going back, I believe is whenever we went through discovery. So you go to discovery. You finally say, all right, well, we'll do this thing. And what happened next?
well, it was about relationships. Like I said, I got to see Pastor John's heart. I got to see Pastor Sarah's heart in a way that's just different than a Sunday morning service.
Yeah.
And I just slowly started buying in and started chipping away at the kind of mask that I had worn for so long. And of course, when you get finished with discovery, it's like, well, you're part of the church. And as I said earlier, the church is the body of Christ, and we all have different roles. So Carly being I just wanted to leave discovery and keep going to church on Sunday and say hi to everybody that we were in discovery with.
You got something out of it. You're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Carly's like, well, we gotta do something now. We gotta, we gotta sign up for something. I'm like, I'm underqualified for this, And we ended up in Faith Kids, and that has been, man, such a blessing. Like, I didn't know what I was doing back there at first. And now I've gotten relationships with these kids where like I genuinely love that time that I get to spend with them. And then I've seen some kids go from being, in like the second grade to now they're going to youth on Wednesdays and stuff
cool,
like
man.
that. But I think what it did, like I said, it was about relationships. And so Pastor John knew us enough now to where he felt, I mean, Pastor John's going to do Pastor John things. Like, it doesn't matter. He doesn't have to feel comfortable. But what I will definitely tell you is that there was one September where we were in church, kind of business as usual, and Pastor John came up, said, "Stand up." And like, me, it's Carly and I, and he had a word for us. And I'd been going to the church for probably 7 or 8 years at that point in time. And I don't know that I would have said that I ever really bought into the words. I still was at best like an infant in the powers of the Holy Spirit, in my kind of understanding or even faith in them.
Yeah.
But he spoke over us, and I don't know, man, something like I believed it. I believed that it was prophetic. And what that caused me to do afterwards was the same thing he'd been telling me to do for like 7 or 8 years, which is, why don't you crack open your Bible a little bit? And so I had actually heard, I think it was Jamie Futrell, talk about how he was doing a life group in Romans. I was not comfortable going to a life group, so I didn't go, but I thought maybe Romans is a good place to start. So I got on the Bible app, found a reading plan for Romans, read through it, and then for whatever reason, the next thing that I read was Isaiah.
Oh, wow.
And it was just like stuff started changing. I love John chapter 1. And it's because, in the beginning.
Right. I'm in John right now. It's so like the way it's beautifully written.
Yeah.
Like I am reading through the Bible myself, and I'm actually in Isaiah. That's so funny that you said that. And I'm also in John. And after reading through Mark a couple times, I think Mark might be one of my favorite gospels just because of the like impact it has. But there's no denying, when you read John, it just makes you like, it hits your heart.
Yeah.
It's so artistically written. I don't know if that's the right word, but the Holy Spirit through that, it's like, wow, it's so beautifully written.
Yeah. And the word was there
God,
in the beginning. And so that same word that I had made all kinds of excuses, to avoid reading or to, I get it. I get the big picture. That same word, the manifestation of that word is Jesus Christ, and it's all here. And so it started for me with the word, and it's just been, what that's done is it's just caused me to take new steps and continue allowing God to chip down the walls that I'd built up. And now, I don't know. This is
so interesting you started with Romans.
Yeah.
Because Romans is humbling. I tell people on here all the time, just go home and read Romans 1 and then read Romans 2. And you'll be immediately humbled. It's like, there's some really good parts of it that are just really encouraging, but some of it's like really hard to read, at least for me. Maybe I'm just on an island, but some of it is really hard to read. It's like, it really tests you.
Yeah.
It humbles you. It's like a humbling book. Because like I was telling you earlier with 5, 6, 7, and 8, it's talking about sin. There's a lot there to unpack with sin.
Yeah.
And then it's got the whole like, Pharaoh and all this other stuff in it. It is an interesting book for you to start out with, for sure. I love it. I love Romans. I think it constantly is. It's like a renewing your mind.
Yeah.
Is in there. So
yeah, and I'm going to be honest. I don't know if I had any idea what I was actually. I mean, especially starting with Paul is like not the best idea because that dude he's awesome.
He doesn't pull any punches, man. He just says it.
And he says it in like sentences that go on for paragraphs somehow.
Right.
So trying to keep up, like, how did we get this is one sentence. How did I end up here? But it's like it didn't even matter. It was the willingness and the fact that there had been enough of a transformation in me already to just open it up, spend some time with God, that he just started doing his thing. It wasn't
Mm.
it wasn't necessarily that I was immediately digesting and eating meat, I
Mm.
was still very much on milk, but it was the start of me going from a comfortable, lukewarm Sunday Christian. I'll think about God when I'm there between the hours of 10 and 11:30 depending
Mm.
on who's preaching. And, and then the rest of the week I'm good. I got this. I'll do it myself,
Yeah.
And and that thing, man, has been, you know, it- as much as I'm grateful for everything that I had to go through to get sober, and I absolutely am. And it's one continuous story. It's not like
Yeah.
you can separate one from the other. But this part of my testimony, like getting back to God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. That's the thing that I'm like, this is the part that I want to talk about,
Yeah.
because you don't you don't have to be the lukewarm church. We don't have to be the lukewarm church. We
Right.
there's so much more. And I was saying this just the other day in our life group that Carly and I are in. I can't think of one thing that the Holy Spirit has convicted me about, that I've laid down at the altar, that I've really really thought like, man, my life was better when I had that in it.
Right.
I mean, it feels like there's something that I'm going to be giving up. That's what the flesh tells me.
Yeah.
But
That's a lie.
yeah, it is the biggest lie. Yeah.
Yeah, because just like it says in Romans, you're a slave to it.
Yeah.
You're a slave to sin. You have to choose to be a slave to righteousness. It's like he tells them, I'm putting this in human terms just so you can even kind of understand what I'm saying to you, because it was such a hard concept to even explain to the people he was writing to, that this whole idea of what you choose to do is your master. Just like Jesus says, you can't serve two masters.
Yeah.
And so there's this like built up idea that Satan runs through everyone's mind, that if you lay this down, you're gonna be less funny, you're gonna be less confident, you're gonna be socially awkward whenever you stop drinking. When you lay down this thing, you're not gonna know what to do with your life. But those convictions of the Holy Spirit and laying that stuff down, nothing, like you said, nothing we lay down was ever like, man, I wish I still had that in my life. Like we're
Yeah.
so much happier for it.
Yeah. And I was talking to a buddy the other day at work, and it's just funny you said what you said about, who am I going to be when I lay all this stuff down? And he just recently had a terrible tragedy happen. His brother died, and it was way too soon. And people knew that it was coming, and he's really, I think right now he would consider himself an agnostic. So I was trying to witness to him and say, here's what I see for you, and here's what I hope for you. And he kind of started off pretty mad at me about it, because his mom is a woman of faith, and they'd gotten into it shortly thereafter just because of the heightened emotions around. I mean, you can imagine, like, it's a tragic thing.
Yeah.
And so some stuff's going to get said that just hasn't been said. And he said, you've been praying for our brother for years. Where did that prayer get you? That's something he said to his mom. And I was able to talk to him for long enough that it went from me kind of witnessing to, like, he was curious. And he one of the things, coming full circle, the reason I brought it up is that he said, well, I don't see how if I submit or if I give myself over to God, then who am I going to be?
Mm.
I'll
Wow.
lose my identity. I'll lose the thing that, my daughter loves about me, or I'll
Hmm.
lose the thing that, and it's just, we, not we, the enemy is so good at carefully crafting lies that seem so logical.
Mm.
And yeah, man, we just buy it hook, line, and sinker. And
Yeah, prideful to the bitter end, and it doesn't seem like pride. Like if I told that guy, well, you're just being prideful, he'd be like, excuse you, what are you talking about? But that's where it all stems from, is like this idea of like, I'm too great to die. Like I can't, it's like this whole idea of like having to buy that I need a savior, that I have to like let go of this thing that I am and try to be something different. But God's given you a purpose as you. You just have to find it in Him.
yeah,
And so it's like it's a hard idea, especially with someone who's dealing with a trauma like that. And then those questions that almost no one has a good answer for, like where did all your prayers go? Well, they don't understand heaven. They don't have a concept of the spiritual world that, really it's a blessing. You know what I mean? And it's hard for people to hear that whenever your loved ones die, is like they're in a better place. Like they're praising in heaven. Like they don't miss it. They don't miss it here. We miss them, and I get it. But like they're happier. If his brother was a believer, that's also a tough thing to swallow too. Is if the loved one wasn't a believer, then you have that whole idea of like, so they're just in hell.
right.
And then that makes them angry and not want to. Why would I want to accept heaven if I know someone I love is in hell?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So that's a tough one, man.
yeah,
At least you were able to be there, and like, just him getting curious shows something's turning inside of him.
right. And I think that's it for me, man. Like I just want to be able to, and it's I give myself a hard time about it all the time, just because it is easy for me to just default to humor, but it's like these things that Pastor John has been saying for forever.
Mm.
It, it's they're some of them are just now sinking in. And
Mm.
so our mission field, my mission field, is wherever I am. And if that happens to be at work, and then a conversation happens to come up, I mean, I don't have any shame about what I believe, or talking to somebody about what I believe,
Mm.
and trying my best to encourage them however I can.
You don't have to change who you are anymore to fit some kind of
Exactly.
like vase. You know what I mean?
And I'm telling you, man, like I don't even know how to stress how much of a miracle that is, because for the longest time I was that same chameleon that I talked
Mm.
about, right? So
Mm-hmm.
even though I'd gotten sober, I still wanted to blend in. And when I'm at church, then I'll sing along and grab the back of the chair and look around, and see what I'm supposed to do. But when I'm at work, I'm gossiping.
Mm.
I'm doing all the things that like I don't feel good about, but it's what everybody else is doing. So
Yeah.
I don't want to stand out. So let's just do the status quo. And the miracle is that I don't want to do that. And it's not from a place of like holier than thou. It's like I know that ruins an opportunity later. That same
Mm.
guy who was talking to me last Friday probably wouldn't have even bothered saying anything to me had he seen that, like, okay, this is what Tyler's version of Christianity is. Like,
Mm.
he goes to church on Sunday, but then he's using whatever language he wants to Monday
Mm.
through Friday. And
Yeah.
so it is I don't I don't look at sanctification the same way that I did when I was 13 or 14. Like it's something that I white knuckle, but I do listen and respond when the Spirit prompts something. And as a result of that, it has given me the ability to speak to people in situations like that,
Mm,
and they don't have to question my authenticity.
right.
So, and like I said, that is a huge miracle, because I was not I was Daniel can fulfill the Great Commission. I'm good.
Mm,
I will support however I can from the sidelines,
yeah.
but that ain't me. That ain't for me.
Yeah.
That was the way that I thought for years. So,
It's so easy to get there, man. When you go to church on a weekly basis, it's so easy to get to the point of where you're just like, I'm cool with being on the sidelines. And like this missionary work, it sounds cool, but I'm not going to give anything to it. We're, maybe we're even not even tithing. Maybe we just kind of give whenever we feel like the guilty to give. And you have all of this like stuff you got to walk through. But just to hear your heart and wanting to be obedient to what the Holy Spirit prompts you to do, and like your desires change, man. Everything about your decisions, your DNA, it slowly but surely changes within you.
yeah. Yeah, that I felt that when you said it. And I mean, it definitely has. And it, like I said, it's been a slow thing, but it started with relationships. It
Mm,
started with the word, and it's kind of just grown from there. I mean, out of all of the things that I thought I was going to have to give up, I've got such a full life now. And I think that's one of the things that I want to, or try to remind people of, is that the Methodist tradition, my wife is a Baptist, so
mm,
a lot of that's what she grew up as.
mm-hmm.
Faith Center, obviously non-denominational. They just preach Jesus. So, but like the thing is, man, there's so many misconceptions that I had about this is what I've got to do to get my stay out of hell card punched,
Mm,
and that's it. But I don't think that that's what Jesus came to give us. I
mm,
don't think he just came to give us, I guess what I'm saying is I think eternal life starts before we die.
right.
And that's kind of another miracle or revelation that's started to unfold, because yeah, I mean, all I've ever cared about is just what can I get in this situation. It's just been selfish and self-centered, and
Mm.
it's when I let God in all the way, it's not like that today.
I think, just hearing a little bit of your story and acknowledging like God in all of it, it's so cool to like take a moment and think of even more recent, even just now, because we've talked about a lot of years, but think about just the time you've been at Faith Center and the time you've been serving with the youth. Isn't it so cool God puts you guys with the youth where you're serving with the youth? The kids, not even just like youth, like teenagers, like the kiddo kids.
Yeah.
I think there's something, I don't know if this is, I just feel like the Lord, this is for you, that like the Lord put you there for a reason. And I think there's something that if you can explain Jesus to a child, you can explain him to anybody,
Mm.
because you don't have to give them some kind of theology. You just keep it simple. It's just from the heart. And God's put you around people who are very powerful, people who I really trust and respect a whole lot. Who, the people who run it with Amy and Travis, and then with Garrett and Pastor Garrett and Leslie back there. I know you guys are around a lot of people, and maybe you guys don't serve at the same time, but you guys are all doing it together.
Yeah.
And I know you guys are like-minded in that. It's because God's like forming you still, and He's calling you more. And so like when you have those conversations with people now, you have this experience where you're surrendering to little kids who can be as frustrating as it gets whenever it comes to patience right? With attention spans and everything. But the heart of the message is just keeping it simple, right?
Yeah.
Like just keeping it to where you can keep them engaged. And if you can take that into a conversation with someone, at work, that's what's going to keep them curious and
Yeah.
keep them interested. Not some kind of like, well, let me just explain the theology of the Bible real quick to you, or why I believe,
Right.
why I believe this. I mean, and you're still in the steps of like learning how important this Holy Spirit thing is too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's such an awesome place to be when your eyes are starting to get open to that. I talk about it on the podcast ad nauseum, and maybe some people don't, feel comfortable with it. But I just started getting mentored by a guy. His name is Bob, but I'll call him Pastor Bob out of respect for the podcast. But anyways, he told me for him, like Holy Spirit is like right up there with oxygen. You don't have to have it to be saved, but for him, it's like right there with oxygen. Like that's how important it is in his life. And it's something my dad's instilled in me for decades is this Holy Spirit, tongues, and all of it. It's so important in his life. And I
Yeah.
think the more I'm around it, the more true it is. The more true it is that this world is all a spiritual thing
Yeah.
manifesting itself in a physical reality.
Yeah.
And all these people are trying to come up with this understanding and idea of like what this thing is. There's this thing that happens and I feel it and I know it's more than just me, but it's like it's a simulation or it's just out there in the ether and I just get these ideas from something else. No, it's God. It's a spiritual world manifesting itself, whether demonic or angelic. And so that's how I believe. That's how I feel like the Lord's been revealing to me is like there's this more of this spiritual revelation that we'll never scratch the surface of.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I don't know how much you listen to Charlie Kirk, but it's not even to necessarily dive into that. But what I want to say about it is that I've been working now in the same place, same facility for more than a decade, around the same group of guys for close to that, and we've seen tragedies come and go. I mean, in the age of the internet, you get news as fast as you want it.
Yeah.
But when that happened, and some of these guys, I don't even know, like there are specific ones like the one I mentioned. I know he would say that he was an agnostic, and some of them would espouse that they were Christians, and I mean that's not for me to know. But what I'm trying to get at is when that happened, there was just I'm at work, we're all at work together, and there was something spiritual about that just hit everyone the same way. And the reason why it's significant to me is because I knew immediately, this whole thing was spiritual. The assassination was spiritual. And so naturally we feel the spiritual aftershock of that as it goes across the internet.
Yeah.
And I don't think, to your point, I don't think that we're all necessarily equipped to be able to point at that and say, that is either the Holy Spirit or some spirit that is more real than this table is.
Right.
But we still know it at some level. It's just the wisdom and the maturity and the slow revelation as I've gotten to know Christ more, that I do become more sensitive to how real that really is. And I love what you're saying. Pastor Bob said, it's like oxygen. I want to be there.
Right. That's where I'm trying to grow into is this idea, instill it more in my life to where it is like oxygen.
Yeah.
Because I've been honest on here, like I'm struggling with it. I'm like not speaking in tongues, and I want to grow in these giftings. But I'm just trusting the Lord. But I want it to be right there with oxygen. I think what you're saying with the Charlie stuff is it's 40 something. It's been a little while now, and it's like people have already forgotten, but it's so sad. So sad people celebrated it. There was a demonic presence around people celebrating it. I think for me, whenever I was way more in my worldly state, I would see people die on social media, and you would see traumatic things like that every once in a while. If you just, it got on your algorithm, you would just see people getting hit by a bus or whatever, right? And like with movies nowadays, you can see all types of gore. But whenever that popped up on my phone, I did not realize I was about to watch it. And I watched it like literally right after it happened, like
Yeah.
hours after it happened, because I saw he got shot and I saw he was in the hospital and I saw a video and I thought maybe he lived. So for some reason, I thought maybe I didn't know what the angle was like. I didn't realize I was going to get a straight on shot of what happened.
Yeah.
And I literally watched it, and it was the most traumatic death I've witnessed. And I watched it on my phone. That's disgusting. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Just the way it happened. I looked at my wife, and I almost felt like I was gonna throw up. And she could see how traumatic, like I was traumatized in that moment. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And she was like, what? And I was like, he's gone. Like, there's no chance.
Yeah.
He's gone. And she was like, what? And I was like, I watched it and I shouldn't have watched it, but he's gone. And it was tough, man. And it was so interesting. We went to that John Christ comedy show, and that they were friends.
Yeah.
Like, is that not a coincidence? Is that weird? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, there's too many things that happen in our life, and people just consider it coincidence. But I don't see it that way.
Yeah, no, me neither. And I don't know if I finished what, the significance of kind of the way that spiritual aftershock was shown at work, but we sat in silence for an hour. And this is an area in the plant that I work in where there are constantly people coming in and out. There's always conversation happening. We've got to figure out, we're planning for what's happening next, but there was just nobody wanted to talk for an hour. And it was just, I think to your point about the phone, I heard Lee Strobel say, he's the author of The Case for Christ, and he said, the enemy is not omnipresent. So, but what he is he's very wise and cunning in a worldly way. And so he's got to figure out a way to inflict maximum damage with least effort. And I mean, these things, these phones that we have, the lie that they're making us more connected than ever. And really, I'm seeing the deterioration of connection, and I was a part of it. It's the accessibility to things like that, where the enemy can show you Charlie's death, or show you, fill in the blank. But
Yeah.
it's certainly a cheat code for him to just be able to mass distribute.
Yeah. You're
all
touching on
kinds of-
something important there for sure.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the things that I try to use almost in an apologetic sort of way, because what the enemy doesn't realize is that when he makes himself so obviously present, he is confirming that evil exists. Because there are just some things that you can't explain with money or financial incentives. There are some things that are just objectively evil.
Right.
And so if you have that, well then, that also means that we have objective good.
Yeah.
And so how do you reconcile that? And
Yeah.
I think there's a spiritual fingerprint that is tangible enough that if people are just willing to kind of halfway open their eyes, they can at least acknowledge that, and then hopefully the Holy Spirit can take over from there.
Yeah. He might, he's not omnipresent in the sense he can't be everywhere at once. He also has an army that
Yeah.
he sends out.
Yeah.
And with this whole internet thing, he can influence you like you said, with just the swipe of a finger, and then maybe a lesser little, grunt comes and whispers in your ear, and then you buy into that. And then he sends a stronger demon, and then he sends a stronger. So just even knowing how to utilize what he has, his forces at will. I don't think Satan has bought into the fact that he's going to lose one day. I think he fights like he thinks he's going to win,
Right.
and using technology to his advantage. Like I won't even say what I was about to say, but I just feel like that's just like he fights like someone who, but the thing is, he's fighting God, who's already victorious, and I think he overplays his hand, like you were just saying, with how evil he is, to where God turns everything for good. So something like that tragedy led to millions of people going to church the next Sunday,
Right.
and hopefully a bunch of them stuck with it and didn't just go for 1 week. I can't know that for sure. But things like that, you never know what God's going to, pull out of the ashes, so to speak, or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure that there was a certain amount of it that was just an emotional response. So yeah, I will go to church the next week. But then along with that, there's some percentage of people who are going to keep going, and regardless, it is the evidence of a greater spiritual war that's going on that I think is doing the work,
Yeah.
And even in the case, like I said, if it is the enemy that is attacking us spiritually, when you see an attack of that scale, it makes it harder and harder to just play dumb and
Mm.
play complacent. And I feel like I can say that because that's where I was for a really long time, just complacent and comfortable.
So what's next for you, man? What do you feel like the Lord's leading you in this season?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. I am I am open to whatever he has for me. I actually don't try to figure it out. I
Mm.
know that one of the things that recently I've felt led to do is to become more open, more vulnerable
Mm.
with people that I was never comfortable being vulnerable with before.
Mm.
So I'm willing for God to grow me however he sees fit. You know, I don't know what that looks like. Maybe it looks like me staying exactly where I am and
Mm.
just, my I've been taught that my first mission field is my kids, so
Mm.
I
Mm-hmm.
I definitely hope to be planting better seeds um
Mm.
in them, but I I I'm open for whatever God wants. Recently I heard a friend of mine say that it's just about like constantly emptying of themselves, and
Mm.
that hit me because there are still areas where I need to be more empty, you know.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so I'm just letting God do his thing because I do have the blessing of hindsight in my story, and I can see that so far it's worked out a lot better than I'd planned.
Yeah.
So
Praise the Lord, man. It's awesome to hear where you've been, where the Lord is at with you right now, and just letting him lead you, man. There's no better place. You don't have to have like this whole like in 5 years, this is what the Lord's called me to do. Just knowing like you're following him every step of the way. Cause sometimes it is just like a day by day, step by step. And Jody and I are believing for some big things, but like it's not like in our immediate unless he just comes down and does something miraculous. So like just waiting on him, but also being ready for that. Because
yeah,
we have to be ready for the call. Because like he could call you to do something tomorrow that's way bigger than what we could even possibly imagine. But we have to be ready for that.
yeah,
We have to be prayed up. We have to be in our word. We have to be spiritually ready. We have to be at the edge of our seat ready, And I think that's a place that we're at more so now with our willingness to serve, with our willingness to be used, not just be like a backseat quarterback to John or a Monday morning quarterback when we hear something. Because everyone has that where they hear something at church where they're like, I wouldn't have said it like that. We all do it. rather than do that, say, what can I receive out of this? Having
Yeah.
a receptive heart.
You care if I ask what you and Jody are believing for?
Prosperity, man. I don't know how else to put it, and I know people get kind of like weirded out by that concept, and they think of greed, and I just did a whole podcast on giving just first or Second Corinthians 7 or 8. Anyways, we just went to a conference. It was all about giving, and we bring that home, and we expect to receive. I'm believing that our church is going to have the funds for a new building. I'm believing that the church is going to have everything it needs for staff, for whatever, as it grows. That's a lot, right? That's a lot to believe for, but I also believe like in that Jody and I are going to receive. We've had like specific words spoken over us, dealing with prosperity. John gave me $100 bills. I don't know if you were there the Sunday he did. It's been a couple of years ago. He gave me $100 bill, and he said, like the prosperity, like the thing is there for you to grab. Like prosperity is here for you to have. You just have to go out and take it, right?
Yeah.
That was like 3 years ago. I was like an alcoholic. I was like waiting for the Lord to say, like, wake up and smell the roses, Daniel. And God was like, I want to bless you, Daniel. And I was like, you want to bless me? I don't even like feel like I like know where you are right now. It like broke me. It was like so weird for me to receive that at that time. I was like, God, you're so much bigger than my ignorant, my childish moment of failing, and you're just ready to bless me.
Yeah.
So that's it in a nutshell.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it's crazy.
I'll be praying for you guys.
It's not crazy. It's just like
No, it's
I don't.
not
We
at
don't
all.
know what it is. Like Jody's business oriented. It could be a business. It could be this. I have no idea, and
Yeah.
I don't. It doesn't matter. We just want to be faithful in whatever we have, and part of that is being a good steward of what you do have.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Just when you were sharing that, man, the compassion of Christ and just how he always meets us exactly where we need to be met. And I think that there are so many Christians that think they're one sin away from losing salvation, you know, because that's such a default mindset, is this like condemnation and fear.
I've lived that. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And instead what he says is, I'm given. All you got to do is receive. I mean,
We serve a God
it's
of more
beautiful.
than enough, man. You
Yeah.
can't read the story of Abraham, and you can't read these stories in the Bible and not think God doesn't want to bless you. And it's more than just financial, dude. Like just being sober over a year and having a loving relationship with my wife that's not constantly in turmoil, constantly at breaking point.
Right.
I mean, you know what that's like, where
Yeah.
it feels like you just you get resentful because you feel like it's all falling apart around you, and just to be healthy and happy and loving and have your kids be healthy and happy. People don't have their kids, man. They lose their kids every day. Like people die, and there's so much death and evil in this world. So just to live in the blessing of the Lord doesn't mean like I have $1 million in the bank account. You know what I mean? So we're believing for this prosperity, but it doesn't just, it's not just money, you know,
Yeah.
it's like in life.
Yeah.
Anything else for the people before we hop off here?
Man, I could sit here and talk about
Yeah.
Jesus all day long, but no, I think,
You can come back anytime for sure.
well, I think, you know, I've shared my heart, and I've shared what God's done for me, and that's really what I wanted to do. And like I said, man, more than anything, I hope that, you know, obviously if someone's in addiction, you know, I want freedom for them from that. But what I hope resonates more than anything else is that I lived life as a slave twice. You know, I was a slave to addiction, but that's almost easier because it's tangible. It's this thing that I know that has control over me.
Mm-hmm.
But the second time around, that's the more abundant miracle that just keeps on growing in my life, because I was a slave to my comfort, and God broke me of that, and it's only by His grace that I'm awake, you know, and I still got waking up to do, you
Yeah.
know, but man, it's I don't know how to be grateful enough.
Yeah, we all have our different things that we've struggled with. You know, addiction might not hit home with everybody, but you're addicted to something. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a drug. And one of those addictions easily is comfort. We just, as a Christian church, we've just grown to where we just want to be comfortable. And that's one of the most dangerous places to be because it's real easy to do.
Yeah,
With
because
AC, with food, we have more than enough, right?
yeah,
We are blessed. Like I'm already living in abundance. I don't have to like worry about eating. Like I have to choose not to eat. Like I have to choose to fast.
yeah,
Like some people don't have a choice. So we are blessed, and that comfort it can come and snatch up what the Lord's doing in your life real fast. Because in complacency, you sometimes get envious of what other people have, and then you're kind of comfortable looking at what other people have, and you're just like, why don't I have that?
yeah.
Whenever you have more than enough, and it gets you kind of away from being thankful and grateful and moving forward with that kind of mindset.
And it's just last thing, it's just so dangerous because Jesus didn't die to give us comfort and AC and enough food to eat.
Yeah.
You know, he died and gave us a very clear mission, and a lot of people just I instead of saying a lot of people, I'm going to say me. I constantly questioned, you know, this vision of what is God's will for my life. Well, it's that question's answered. You know, it is the Matthew 28:19 vision. That is
Right.
God's will. And so am I being obedient to that, or am I comfortable? And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't I it so badly just want to be a vessel of hope for anybody who is comfortable, that God's got so much more.
Every answer you need is in the Word of God. What's your purpose? Whatever question you have, it's going to be a simple answer most of the time, and then the complexity comes with you following it out and you being obedient to it, and then the Lord guiding your steps. Because, like, you know, we're all called to go. What does going look like for you? I don't know. The Bible doesn't say go and be a janitor, but that might be what you're called to do.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have to go find that thing,
Yeah.
right? And so God's called you in your season to serve a faith center Paducah with the children, and then He's called you to more, you know, with work and whatever, and just not just the kids, but the adults, anyone in that church. You're called to, you know, help, and then out in the community wherever He leads you. And so, could that grow? Yeah, 100%. It could lead to the nations. There's a camera dying on us. That camera has about a 2-hour battery on it, which, hey, I think is pretty good.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Tyler. I
Yeah,
really
man.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Daniel.
It's been a blessing to have you. It's been really cool to get to know you better. And hopefully it doesn't just stop here. Hopefully we can continue to get to know each other better.
Yeah. Absolutely, man.
All right. I'll talk to you guys next time.